Joining me now to discuss Colombia's politics is Michael Shifter. He is the president of the Inter-American Dialogue. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, when we look at the first round of this election, both candidates getting around the 20s, 25 and 29, very far away from the 50% that's needed. So going into the second round, who's in a better place?
Well, it's hard to know. I think clearly Zuluaga has the momentum. He's been surging in the last couple of weeks, but Santos has the party machinery. And in part, it depends on what the other three candidates, which together almost got 40% of the vote, if you put together the other three candidates who lost the first round. And there's a lot of wheeling and dealing going on from the two candidates, top candidates, to try to get their votes. So that's going to be absolutely crucial.
Right. So a lot will be determined by which of those losing candidates says my vote goes this way or that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's a lot of deals going on. We're already seeing that on both sides. And it's complicated. Some of these different candidates, I think, are divided. The Conservative Party is one of the parties that got over 15% of the vote. The candidate is going with Zuluaga, but some of her supporters are going with Santos. And so some of these, it's a fragmented, fractured situation.
You know, as we've been reporting about this election, it seems the one issue that is being discussed over and over again is FARC. How does one deal with FARC? What's the future for FARC? What happens next? Is that the main issue in this election?
I think it is, because the two candidates really agree essentially on economic policy, on the social agenda. There's very little daylight between Zuluaga and Santos, but there's considerable daylight on the question of how to deal with the FARC. Santos has pursued a peace process. Zuluaga's been very critical of Santos for being too soft. Not really insisting on tough conditions. Colombians think that the FARC have been weakened, so they should simply get a deal at the terms of the government, and so that is really the difference, and that's going to be put to a test on June 15th, which is the second round.
Well, that's interesting. You mentioned the Colombian people. I mean, where do they stand on this issue of FARC? If, as you say, they are saying, look, they've been weakened, let's get on with this, we need peace in this country. They're not really showing it in the votes, are they? No,
there's an ambivalence there in the Colombian people, frankly. They want peace. They don't want any more bloodshed. This has been going on for 50 years. The FARC was created in 1964, and so this has been a long-standing armed conflict. It's had tremendous costs for the country. But there's skepticism about the FARC. And when Santos was elected and he announced the peace process, he said this would be a matter of months, not years. And that was in 2012, and we're in 2014. So there's an impatience in a sense that what's going on here, why is it taking so long? Very few results, very little progress. This is complicated. Santos is trying to communicate that, but there's skepticism, and the polls reflect that.
Is that what's cost him votes in this election, you know, raising expectations?
I think so. I think that was part. He took a huge gamble when he won the peace process. Many analysts thought that he would go for a second term, but that he'd wait until the second term to start the peace negotiations with the FARC, because this is very risky. You never know how it's going to turn out. The Colombian people don't trust the FARC. They feel like they've been playing games in the past. They haven't negotiated in good faith. So that was a real risk that he took, and it's cost him in the first round. And he's going to really have to, and he's doubled down in the second round. He's really made this the centerpiece of his campaign, and he's trying to convince the voters that it's a choice between more war or peace. And he's hoping that the voters and the other three candidates will bring their supporters to his side.
Right, doubling down, you say he's also promised to have a deal tied up by the end of the year.
Well, exactly. There has been progress made. I mean, to his credit, there have been a few advances made on the drug issue, for example, on the agrarian, the land distribution issue. But the tough issues remain. The justice issue. Is the FARC going to go to jail? Are they going to pay for their crimes or not? That issue, a lot of Colombians care about and hasn't quite been settled and addressed. So between now and the end of the year, that would be one that would have to be worked out.
Right. Let's look at foreign policy, the relationship with the United States. It's governed or regulated or has to be seen within the framework of something known as the Plan Colombia.
Correct.
What is that?
Plan Colombia was an effort that started in the year 2000, 14 years ago, which is $1.3 billion aid package for security and to fight drugs in Colombia. 90% of the cocaine that's used in the United States comes from Colombia. And over the years, there's been $9 billion that's been provided to Colombia, which is way beyond any other country in the Western Hemisphere and only second to those in the Middle East and Afghanistan and Iraq. And it really has achieved Colombia's progress on the security front. They've reasserted the authority of the state. The armed forces have gotten better, and the FARC has been militarily weakened.
Right.
Under
It
Plan Colombia.
includes, Plan Colombia includes the deployment of U.S. troops in Colombia.
Advisors. They're advisors. There are limits that have the U.S. had been very careful to avoid another quagmire and a slippery slope and another Vietnam. So there's a certain several hundred advisors have been in Colombia. So there are no real troops, but they have been working with the Colombians, and the Colombians really have achieved enormous progress on the security front under Alvaro Uribe, who was the president from 2002 to 2010. Santos was Uribe's defense minister.
And does Plan Colombia have widespread support in the country?
Yes, it does have widespread support in the country. The security situation is of major concern. It's gotten better, but there is obviously on the drug issue, it's hard to call Plan Colombia a complete success because part of it was to try to reduce the drugs that came to the United States, and the drugs in the United States are still easily available, and so the drug issue remains a real problem. But the state got stronger, the security forces got stronger, and the FARC was reduced in half from around 18,000 combatants to 8,000 or 9,000 combatants, and the Colombians like that.
Very quickly, Michael, we expect that to continue no matter who becomes president.
There's going to be, I think, a gradually winding down, but I think the commitment is there, and I think that the Obama administration has signaled that it's helped Colombia in terms of fighting the war and fighting the FARC, and during the peace process, during the post-conflict, implementing the agreements. If there's an agreement with the FARC, the United States, I think, could be counted on to continue to support the Colombians.